let me just introduce this by saying that years ago, I used to present a regular feature on Understanding the Times Radio by talking to Holocaust survivor Anita Dittman about her Christmas in the concentration camp. Well, we're at that time of year, and I'm going to actually repeat that because we have so many new listeners who've not heard any of her story, but particularly the very, very uplifting story of Christmas in the concentration camp. So, Anita Dittman, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for asking me.
I just want to visit Nazi Germany for a few minutes here because the Nazis, they kind of let government become God, but they did like Christmas. So the Nazi people who were a part of Germany, more of a secular take on Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
More gifts and things like that?
Well, you find it in this country, too.
Absolutely. So, and I remember you telling me that you would hear the Christmas carols played from bands throughout your city in Breslau.
Yes. Well, not all the bands, but the bells. And then right close to us, when we lived in the little suburb, we had a church that had an educational building and a flat roof. And we used to open our window and
you could hear the Christmas...
The brass band.
Brass band.
Yeah, Hitler couldn't stomach it out altogether. Well, he faked it too. When he got up to speak, I have to translate it, he would always lift up his hand, God the just and mighty.
Okay. So he passed himself off as a Christian.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Now, you and your mother, and we can't go into all of your story, but I want to go to certain segments of it here, but you and your mother had become Christians, and you became a Christian several years before your mother, and then she was actually taken to a concentration camp before you were. But you told me that she made your Christmas very special, even though by that time you were in deprived conditions. How did she make it special?
Of course, we had a little tiny tree because that was supposed to be something that Martin Luther introduced. And we were very, very, it had to be very tiny little gifts. And I remember my sister and I babysat and did all kinds of things to have enough money to buy my mother a new pair of gloves because hers had worn out. And then we don't wrap things in Germany. We just put a cloth over it, and my mother put a sheet over it. And then you come in and you sing a little bit, and the regular candles are burning on the tree, and then she takes the sheet and opens it. These are our presents. We do that on birthdays, too. We save a lot of money and a lot of time.
Well, but eventually you are going to be separated.
Oh, yeah.
And your mother was going to ultimately she would go to Camp Theresienstadt, and you were going to go to a work camp north of your hometown, Breslau. I think you were going to go to Camp Barthold. You relate in the book, and folks, the book is Trapped in Hitler's Hell. It's a story I wrote about Anita some years ago, which has been brought up to date more recently, but you were in the woods. You were chopping down trees. That was part of what is forced labor is what it was. Once you were actually sent to a work camp, and you had a friend in this camp. His name was Christian, and he came up to you one very cold day, and he said to you, do you know what day it is?
Yeah.
Just relay that story.
Yeah, it was amazing. We were standing around a little fire that we were allowed to build outside the forest, and he stopped and he said, you know what day is today? And I said, well, I don't know. Just another cold day, No, he said, tonight is Christmas Eve. And we all were happy when we heard that. And he said, I just have a surprise for you people. I went to Mr. Anders, who was the dreadful man that led our camp, and super SS man. He looked like a pit bull and he acted like one, but Christian had a way with him. And so he said, I got the permission to take anybody who wants to go to an evening service at a little church nearby in a different village, and we will meet at such and such time. And out of about 300 people, 10 people went. And of course, we had to have 2 guards with us. And as we were walking, this was so awesome. Hitler couldn't change that either. There were the church bells ringing from all over the different villages. And it was just like a heavenly concert. It was beautiful. And when we finally came to a little church, and a little pot-bellied stove was heating the sanctuary, and the guards were guarding the door to the church so that nobody could escape. And we just joined the villagers, and it was beautiful. And we heard the Christmas story, and it was so nice. And we all gathered around the altar and we had communion, and it was a blessing. It was like an oasis in a desert.
Well, I think we should explain that you personally, all of you who were in this camp, were experiencing some conditions that were similar to, and we don't know how Jesus, his environment when he was born, was it a literal stable? We don't know that. It certainly could have been. But you, as a inmate of this work camp, you lived in a barn. You actually laid on straw as well.
Yeah. We no longer were in that part of the area there. They had moved us to a different camp where we did not, but we still slept on straw. It's straw bags, gunny sacks filled with straw. And we're just a little step up.
Yeah.
But, we had gone through living in a barn before and had just completed our ditches that we were digging. And the ditches, people want to know what are they used for, were being used to trap the Russian tanks if Russia should ever invade the country, and yet Hitler. But, of course, he claimed this will never happen.
Well, he claimed that you were winning, that Germany was winning, and there's no way that you were going to be defeated. And
yeah, of course.
But the truth was something else. So I want to go back to this little church you were in, because there are people listening right now, and they're in the process of making their Christmas plans. And who knows, some of the listeners, they may be focusing more on gifts and family getting together and things like that. But when you entered this little country church, on your mind and heart was the fact that you were going to hear the Christmas story.
And we did.
And you were with other believers, which was so important. And what did you think about the Nazi guards? Because they were watching over you.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think about? They were hearing the Christmas story.
Yes,
they were probably hearing the gospel.
Yeah.
Did you have any interaction with them?
No, not really. A very pleasant interaction.
Well, did they say anything to you?
You mean when we were in church?
Yeah.
No, because they were watching the door so that we couldn't escape.
So you couldn't escape.
No, and I was sitting with the congregation.
So present in this little country church were a lot of villagers, is that right?
Mm-hmm. That was a blessing for us, too, that our camp all the camps were out in the villages. And the ditches we were digging in the other campsite, the Nazis went and approached the citizens there, the farmers, and said, this land that you have here, you can no longer have that because it belongs to the Nazis, and we're going to have these people dig the ditches, and that's it. And so some of the farmers when we were in that area where we were digging ditches, they were really sympathetic to us.
They were.
Very kind.
I think they slipped you some food now and then.
Yeah, in fact, they brought us homemade German rye bread. Oh, and it was so good, with real butter, homemade butter, and liver sausage. Mm-hmm. And we said, what can we do for you? So they brought us great big bags of feathers. And we sat in the corner of the barn to our little group, and we had to take the feathers off the quill. And so that was our payment to help them.
So in the church service, do you think the villagers knew that you were from a nearby concentration camp?
I have no idea.
You don't know if they knew that or not?
I have no idea.
So, because you had jackets on, so they couldn't see if you
Well,
were...
yeah, we had twill coveralls, gray ones, and then we had jackets on. But these people were already sitting, getting ready for the service. We came at the last minute. I have no idea what they knew and what they didn't know.
You called the church bells that were chiming from the church, you called it heavenly music. Why was that?
Oh, it's so beautiful. I wish they had those here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were playing Christmas songs? The bells?
Yeah, no, they don't. They just regular bells. The Christmas. You see, over here when they have when they play Christmas songs, they are not bells. They are an electronic kind of thing. Yeah. No, these were the real bells, and they're old. They harmonized. They had different tunes. It was just heavenly. It was just